Congressman Andrew Clyde from the great state
Good
of
morning.
Georgia. Hey, there you are. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
Good. Grateful you're here. So we have a couple of different things to chat about. We spent a good half hour in the last hour doing one of the most boring segments in radio history, and that was the history of impoundment, sir. Not your thrilling, captivating. I tried to make it exciting. We told a little story of Thomas Jefferson and the Barbary Wars. We tried to jazz it up a bit, but did the best I could with the history of it. How do you describe it in less than a half an hour's of time?
Well, think of it like this. You're helping to save the nation by reducing the spending of the federal government. You think of impoundment like, the impound yard where somebody takes your car. Well, we are impounding spending on a particular topic, many topics if it needs to be, but we're impounding spending of a particular, line of spending of the federal government. We're impounding it so it cannot be further used. And that's the whole idea here. If Congress provides, say, $10 million to the president to accomplish a certain program or a function, and he can do that, for less money, let's say instead of the $10 million, he can do it for $7 million. There shouldn't be a reason why he has to spend $10 million on the program. He should be able to spend $7 million and save $3 million. What Congress gives the president should be the ceiling in the amount that he can spend, not the floor in the amount that he can spend. So that's the whole point of impoundment. And the 1974 Impoundment Control Act basically...
Wait, real quick, can I cut you off? Just real quick comment? The perfectly described, I just want to make the point, make this very clear. And we went through, Article 2 of the Constitution. Impoundment from George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Truman, like for decades and centuries, has been a used, understood part of the power of the executive branch. So it's been a norm, as the left likes to say, from 1789 to I think you're going to get to 1974, right? And that's when.
Correct.
So impoundment was good and proper and understood to be a part of being a functioning executive branch and all the rest. I don't even want to call it a checks and balance, right? It's not even that as much as Congress appropriates and the executive branch does their executive duty in taking care that the money is spent well and wisely and prudently, et cetera. Then what happened in 1974? That's where I stopped the story an hour ago. So what happened in 1974?
Well, in 1974, Congress passed the Impound Control Act, and that basically said that the president must spend the money that Congress appropriates. And there was a little back and forth there between the president and Congress, and the president didn't necessarily want to, and Congress was afraid that he would withhold money for a specific program. Well, that's not the point of it. It's not to withhold money from a program so that the program doesn't get accomplished. No, the president still must faithfully execute the law. All right. The point of impoundment is to be able to save money if the president can. If he can do it more efficiently, if he can hire people that do a better job, and that you take the estimate that Congress made at the example I gave at $10 million, and the president's people can accomplish that, can faithfully execute the law for $7 million and save $3 million, then by all means the president should be able to do it. And he has that authority under the Constitution. But when they passed the Impound Control Act, then they unnecessarily and honestly unconstitutionally put that roadblock in his way where people can now take legal action where before there was no right to be able to do that. I think it's so critical when you look at our national debt and our spending. It stayed relatively flat up until about 1974, 1975. And then you see this dramatic increase to where we are today at $36 trillion in debt. And part of that is the fact that the president's impoundment authority, his constitutional authority, has been impeded by the Impound Control Act of 1974. And that act needs to be eliminated. And that's what this bill does.
Okay. And Mike Lee is the Senate companion bill.
That's correct. Mike Lee is the Senate companion bill, and we have 18 co-sponsors so far in the House. And I think it's very, very important that we consider this bill and pass this bill. It will help the president bring spending back under control, because right now it is wild.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. So I'm thinking if you don't pass this repeal of the bill to get us back to the constitutional norm, then I'm sure the president will do. So Vivek says it's unconstitutional, and I think his implication is it doesn't even need to be followed anyway. But I'm worried that the president will do some impoundment, and then it gets tied up in court, and then 3 years later, the Supreme Court comes back with a decision, and we squander the opportunity. So is that why you want to make this a specific bill, as opposed to just ignore the previous bill?
You're correct. You're spot on. You hit it exactly that. Because what the Impoundment Control Act of 1974 does is it gives a legal option for other people, because of the law, to sue the president if he initiates impoundment and spends less money. And that's just wrong.
Okay. Top priority has to happen. Are you worried as a congressman that by supporting impoundment, you're giving away your power as a legislator and controlling the purse strings to maybe one day will be a Democrat president?
And you're correct. Maybe one day there will be. But this is the thing. Congress should be giving a ceiling of money to be spent, not a floor. That's the whole point right there. No, I don't think we're giving away our power of the purse, because the power of the purse is like, you cannot spend more than this. But if you can spend less and be more efficient in doing it, then I would think the entire country would want that. I mean, do you ever want the government to spend more money than they need to? No.
No. What if it's done with a more nefarious goal of, I don't like this program, so I'm going to purposefully, basically zero fund it under the guise of saving money or something?
Well, in that case, you are not faithfully executing the law. It's not there to eliminate a program. It's there to save money and make it as efficient as possible. That's the point of it. Well, then you would have to do exactly the same thing that people would have the opportunity to do now, and that is take the president to court.
Okay.
For not faithfully executing the law.
Yes. So we had a couple callers after my analysis ask a good question. Let's say, to your example, a program costs $10 million and the president spends $5 million. What happens to the other $5 million that was not spent?
It should go back to the Treasury to eliminate the debt.
Should or would? What? And by Treasury, do you mean? Okay, that's interesting. My thought was it just never gets taken in the first place. But does it get spent? So I guess the worst thing that could happen is it gets spent somewhere else. You said goes to the debt,
and you appropriate it. Okay, so that means you allocate it to that particular program. That's what we do. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. Okay, we allocate that money to a specific program, and if it's not spent, then it goes back to the Treasury.
To do what? What does that mean? What is that? Sorry, I'm a dope when it comes to
the Treasury, and therefore is not spent. So the amount of money for that appropriation is less. Okay, so then you don't have to, in this instance right now, you don't have to borrow as much money, okay, because we are now borrowing $2 trillion in excess of revenue that comes in. You would have a lower debt for that particular time frame. I mean, it's not, the president doesn't have the authority to take that money and allocate it to another program, because that's the power of the purse. That's what Congress does.
Okay, that's the biggest fear, is that's what would then happen with it. It's like, well, you can't spend it. I'm not going to spend it on X, but I'm going to spend it on a Y now.
You can't do that, because Congress did not. That's the power of the purse of Congress. You allocate money, a specific amount of money, and you've got, then he can spend that amount, up to that amount of money. But he doesn't have to spend that amount of money. But with the Impound Control Act of 1974, it basically says it's a floor and a ceiling. All right, you have $10 million to spend, and you're going to spend $10 million on it, whether it takes $10 million or not. Now, if he needs to spend $12 million on it because he can't get it done for $10 million, at that point, then you go back to Congress and you say, okay, here you go. This is what I did. This is how I did it. It's the most efficient way. Your estimate was off. We need more money. And then Congress has the authority to go, okay, well, we agree with you or we don't agree with you. All right. We think what you've done is enough, or yes, we're going to give you the extra $2 million to finish the program the way that we dictated that it be done. The president is to faithfully execute the law that Congress passes.
That all makes perfect sense. Okay, what's the timeline on hopefully passing this bill ASAP?
Well, I would love for it to be passed, but we have literally this week in this congressional session in the 118th. But so we'll have to go into the 119th. I'll have to reintroduce it. But you know what? I'm going to do that literally the first week of session that we're back in January. So it will be just as if it was never, it never died.
Yes.
As we all know, every bill that doesn't pass and get the Senate vote and the House vote and then signed by the president dies at the end of a session. Well, we're 2 weeks from the end of a session. And so, the bill will die in the 118th Congress, but it will be reintroduced in the 119th. And hopefully we'll have 50 or 100 co-sponsors on it then. And then push it forward and give the president and take that roadblock out of the way of the president.
Totally. We are thrilled about it and super grateful for you for making it happen, Congressman. If I can give you a different topic, we've been talking a lot today about healthcare and how we just need to totally revamp everything top to bottom. But another thing that has been talked about forever is the post office. And now we get reports yesterday that Trump wants to perhaps, or is looking into privatizing, very scary word, Congressman, privatizing the post office. And you were at some hearing the other day about this. So what do we need to know about this topic?
I certainly was. Well, I will tell you that the people of the state of Georgia, since about March or February, March of last year, have been suffering under the inefficiencies of the post office and their inability to properly deliver mail. I mean, it went up from about 90% or so. On-time delivery to middle 30s, I think 36% on-time delivery. When they did this, yes, when they did this transition from local processing centers to a regional processing center in Palmetto, Georgia. And so it was a disaster, an absolute disaster. And by July, they were back up, into the mid 70s or so, but still not to their goal of 95% on-time delivery or 93% on-time delivery. They haven't been able to make that. So we have been shining a light on this inefficiency and this inability, and they're getting better, fortunately, but it's not fast enough. And for literally almost an entire year, for 9 months, we have been suffering under the incompetency of the post office. I don't have a problem with looking at privatizing. I think, honestly, all options should be on the table. The goal should be, 95 or higher % delivery of mail for the citizens of our country. That should be the goal. How we accomplish that, I think should be the most efficient way and the most economic way to do that. But it needs to be done. We have to maintain the post office. We have to have the post office. But we can't have it, doing the job it's doing now.